Friends, neighbors, this is the third installment in our little mini-series all about walking bass lines. And that is a Juno Award. Friends and neighbors, welcome back to the Brownstone. I just want to send a little shout to my friends Larnell Lewis and Jeremy Ledbetter. The three of us have won a Juno Award in the category of Jazz Album of the Year Group. We're all very excited about it. I think we're going to be coming to London very soon. We're playing at Ronnie Scott's in London on July the 3rd. And I think there's one more gig. Well, I'll post it. I'll let you know. Anyway, today we're talking about the walking bass line. And this is the third in the series. What I've given you so far is a couple of ideas. One is how to approach each sort of target note in our 3-chord progression. And then the other idea was also using the thirds of the chords in order to connect the harmony in a more melodic way. So you're just not playing root, root, root all the time. If you haven't seen those videos, video number 1 is right up there. And you can continue on from there, and I'll be right here waiting for you when you're ready for video number 3. For now, let's get right into it. In video number 1, I talked about the fact that you can approach any of the tonics, any of the root notes of your chords from a semitone above or below and a tone above or below. In other words, if I have the root note C at the 3rd fret of the A string, I can approach that from a whole step below, from B flat to B to C. You can hear how those 3 notes sort of lead to an obvious conclusion, right? They're letting you know that they're going to resolve on the tonic. So that is from a whole step below. Now I can also do the same thing from a whole step or a full tone above, from D to D flat to C. So I'm approaching the note C from either a tone below or a tone above, and they each give you the same sort of harmonic resolution that we are all looking for. Right? All right. So the idea that I talked about in the last video, video number 2 in our series, was the idea of getting used to the sound of the 3rd of each chord. So here's what I did, just to recap. I'm going to go through the progression and just play the thirds because I want you to get that sound into your heads. Hopefully you've practiced this and you know it already, but I'm just going to run through it quickly and then we'll move on to combining the 2 ideas. So it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. To the 4 chord, 1 chord. 4 chord. Back to the 1 chord. Now up to the 5 chord, the G, back to F, 4 chord, back to C, the 1 chord. And then doing the same thing from the 3rd below the root. So if I've got C to E, that means I've also got C to E. And when I practice that, just getting the sound of the 3rd from either direction, above and below the root. This is the 3rd, or the E below the C, up to the 5 chord. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, go back to video number 2 and I'll explain everything so that it's clear for you. And then come on back and I'll be here waiting. All right, friends, here's where the fun begins. So now we're going to combine these two ideas. And I'm going to do this, and I would like for you to do this out of time, no rhythm, because I want you to think about where you're going, how you're going to approach each root note, and also get used to the sound being created when you play these different patterns. Because once you hear them and you recognize where they are, then you'll be able to access those sounds in real time. So what we're going to do is just like practice these ideas out of time and really analyze where these lines are supposed to go. So now we're going to play a combination of these ideas. If I realize that I can play the root to the third as part of my walking bass line, and I also realize that I can approach any of my root notes of this progression from a whole step above or a whole step below. When I combine these two ideas, beautiful things happen. Let's just take a look at the movement from the 1 chord to the 4 chord. So if I play the C and then go up to the E, watch what happens. I have two options. My next note is going to be the F. That's the 4 chord. If I approach that F from, let's say, a whole tone below, what happens is I get this line. So here I'm on the E, my target is the F, I go a whole tone below the F and approach the F this way. So that gives me this line. Totally valid. It's up to you whether you like it or not, whether you want to use that or not. But check this out. If I take the other idea of approaching that F from a whole step above, watch what happens. I play the root. I play the third. I approach the F from a whole tone above, and I get something very familiar. Right? And all of a sudden we're walking. So that's just the movement from the root of the 1 chord to the 4 chord. And again, here's what I'm doing. I play the root to the third. That's the root to the third of my 1 chord, going C to E. And now I like the sound of approaching the F, the 4 chord, from a tone above. Right? When I combine those two ideas, here's the root to the third, and then approaching the F from a tone above. Again, I want you to play these out of time. I want you to understand the movement that's happening. Once you add the element of time, there's too much pressure for you to play the right notes. By playing them out of time, I really want you to think about how you are approaching each of the chords in this progression, so that you get used to the sound and the movement, and you work these ideas into the muscle memory so that you can just play a walking bass line without thinking about it, because you're hearing what's supposed to be happening in your line, and the hand knows exactly how to access what's in your head. This is the beauty of practicing these ideas out of time. You really get to understand them on a deeper level. This is also why I don't provide tabs or any sort of notation, because when you practice them this way, it's a lot easier to memorize things. It's a lot easier to get these ideas into the subconscious. This is the way that I learned. I didn't learn from tabs. I didn't really learn from reading. I taught myself through repetition and just understanding the way things moved. All right, check this out. If I play the root to the third, and then I have the idea where I can approach my C from a whole step above or a whole step below. There's my root to the third of the F, And now if I go to C, I can play. That's a whole step above the C, from D to D flat to C. I can play. So that's approaching this C from a whole step above. And then I can approach the higher octave, that C, from a whole step above. Now, when I approach the C from a whole step below, I get another very familiar walking bass line pattern. So here's root to the third. Here's my C at the 5th fret, so I'm going to go to the 3rd fret and approach that C this way. So I get this. Right? If I go to the lower octave, if I go to the 3rd below my F, and then approach from B flat to B to C. This means I can either play or I can play. See how that's happening? I've got my root, the F, up to the 3rd, the A. My target is going to be that note C. So I'm going to approach that C from a whole tone below, which is B flat at the 3rd fret, up to the 4th fret, and then I land on the C. I can do the same thing from a tone above. Here's my root to the 3rd, and then I can go up. Here's my C. I'm going to go a tone above, so that's 7th fret, 6th fret, to C at the 5th fret. Now, those same two approaches can be applied to the C at the 3rd fret of the A string. So I can play root, 3rd, right? Because I'm approaching that C from a whole step above. I can also play from a whole step below. So you see what I did there was I played the root to the 3rd, which is the note A, and then. But in this particular case, if I'm going to play the A and approach that C and jump down and play the B flat to B to C here, then I might as well play the open A, because then I get this beautiful sound. So now what we've done is we've covered the first sort of harmonic movement that happens in our 12-bar blues progression, going from the 1 chord to the 4 chord and then back to the 1 chord. So play this out of time. Play your root to the 3rd, and then see your target after you've done that, and then decide whether you want to go a whole tone above or a whole tone below. So this is the formula. I play root, volume, I play root, I go up to the 3rd. My target is going to be F, so I can play, or I can play root to the 3rd, approach my target from a whole tone above. See that? So here, root, 3rd, whole step below, or root, 3rd, whole step above. Now, if I go root to the 3rd, I know that's the E. So I can practice the same idea from the open E. When I play the open E, I only have one option. So here's my root, down to the 3rd, my target is F. That's going to be the 1st fret of the E string, which means I can only approach that note from a whole step above. So now I'm here on this F. I can play root up to the third, and then I see that my next target is going to be that C. So the next logical step would be to approach that C from a whole step below. I can also do the same thing and approach from that whole step above. Here's my C, 3rd fret of the A string. If I go to the 5th fret of the A string, I've got D, D flat to C. So if I just play the first couple of bars, this is all I want you to do. I want you to practice the first 2 bars and examine all of the possibilities that are available to you when you play the root to the third, either the third above the root or the third below the root, and then decide whether you want to play a whole step below the 4 chord or a whole step above the 4 chord. And once you see all of the options available to you in practicing this, then you can sort of catalog your favorite ways to make these harmonic movements. And then when you do that, you're building your own ways to play these walking bass lines. Right? Or right? So that's, here I got to the F, my 4 chord, I played the third, and then from a whole step below I went to the C. That's it. That's all I want you to practice, is that movement. Again, what we're doing is we're playing the root to the third and then approaching the next chord from either a whole step above or below. Just practice that movement. See if you can get all the way through the entire progression using this idea. And if you can't, then just practice those first 2 bars over and over again and really get an understanding of the options that are available to you when you go root to third and then a whole step above or below. That's it. I hope this helps. This is a great way to build walking bass lines, just using the movement of the root to the third and then this rule of approaching from a whole step. I'm going to leave it there, friends and neighbors. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope it helps. And if it does, and if you like it, then please feel free to like, share the video to anyone else who might need this information. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you find that this lesson is of some value to you and you are able to help in a monetary way, donations are always very welcome, and all of the above is greatly appreciated. And I also appreciate you tuning in and visiting me here in the Brownstone, and I will see you in the next video very soon. Peace.